2016, I went on a school trip to China. We visited Xiamen, Suzhou, Taizhou and Shanghai. There's actually evidence of this if you scroll back on my channel, although I'd warn you that the editing is rather intense. That's all I'm going to say on that. Anyway, I didn't know at the time, but this trip was quite a formative memory for me. I'd been studying Chinese at school, but really this was just because my parents encouraged me to. However, it was on this trip that I vowed to myself that I would someday return to China to study. Flash forward to 2020, I began studying Chinese at the University of Leeds. I did have some Chinese already from school, but I hadn't studied it in 3 years at this point, and my pronunciation and tones were pretty poor at GCSE level anyway.
张颖和美美都喜欢打网球.
Unfortunately, most of the learning was online, so I'm not sure how much I actually learned this year, but I applied to study abroad in Beijing for the following year, and I even received a scholarship. I'm not sure why Leeds do it, their year abroad's in second year instead of third year, but that's a whole separate issue. Because of COVID, I couldn't go to mainland China because they weren't open to the rest of the world. So I ended up going to Taiwan instead, which I do not regret at all. It was honestly easily one of the best years of my life. But still, even whilst I was in Taiwan, the dream to live in Beijing was always at the back of my mind. Towards the end of my degree, I felt this longing to live in China. I knew I couldn't get my Chinese to the level I wanted it to be from the UK. A lot of my lecturers talked about their experiences living in China. I was reading a lot of Chinese literature and translation. Even most of the food I cooked in the UK was Chinese inspired. I also was and still am an avid fan of Blondie in China. You should check her out if you're interested. When I was looking for jobs in Beijing, I was imagining myself a vibrant life in the capital of China. Maybe meeting up with an ayi in the park to play mahjong, calligraphy in my spare time, and working on my budding literary translation career on the side of continuing to study this beautiful but very difficult language. I remember when I stepped off the plane, when I was in the taxi from the airport, being so shocked that I had just sat in a metal box for 11 hours and ended up on the other side of the world. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that I was in actual China, that everyone around me was speaking Chinese. It's a very strange feeling being confronted with the real-life Beijing in contrast to the Beijing I had constructed in my mind. During the summer before I arrived, people often asked me, "Are you nervous to live so far away from home?" And I brushed them off completely, thinking that the joy of finally getting to live in China, as I had dreamed of for many years, after 4 years of studying hard at university, would surpass any feelings of homesickness or nostalgia. Very quickly, I came to realise how little I actually knew about Beijing. I didn't know my way around, I didn't know what I could eat that was vegetarian, I didn't know how to pay for things, I couldn't understand why everyone was staring at me, why grandpas were spitting in the street, why aunties cut in front of me in the toilet queue or invaded my personal space on the subway. Culture shock is very, very real. Even after studying Chinese for 4 years, I did not understand the thick Beijing accent of the doorman to my apartment building. I froze up with anxiety when I had to ask for help at a ticket desk. Working as an au pair, being thrust into a Chinese family, I was completely overwhelmed by culture shock, even just within how the family unit operates and the work culture in China. I wanted to get going with the life I had imagined for myself, but I didn't know where to start. I feel foolish now that I didn't do any research into Beijing as a place, things to do, buy, eat, or even just how things worked before I arrived, but that's what drove me to make these videos. I've made many YouTube comebacks over the years, having made videos on and off since I was about 13. But this year I hope it will stick. I hope these videos will help someone in my shoes who's just arrived in China and is completely overwhelmed to find their feet. I hope these videos will give people an insight into what the real China is like, and also serve as a memory for myself to look back on in years to come.
I think it's like red bean, isn't it? Yeah, something. Just smile. What? 好吃吗？ It's chewy. I
Oh,
was expecting chewiness to be there.
nice.
Yeah. That one, it just looked a bit like...
Oh, it's a video. It's always a video. That's so yummy.
It's really crispy.
It's sugar. It's
Ow! Ow!
what the frick? Ow! What are you on about? What's wrong with you? What the hell?
Are you struggling?
Yes. Enjoying the tanghulu. Very good. Yummy.
Crossing. That is so Animal Crossing. On Sunday? Yeah. She's working at school. Guys, I'm trembling. Neither, to be honest. I just really wanted some dumplings.
That was a prime example of why I find it a little overwhelming in Beijing sometimes. Just as I was about to start speaking, that man stopped right next to me. He's still staring at me now. He's over there. It's funny how much you get stared at in China if you're a foreigner. I understand it, like this is a very homogenous country, so when they see a foreigner they usually, it's funny, you can see them in big groups and like they'll be like, hey look, trying to be subtle, or like trying to subtly take pictures. The funny thing is usually I look at them and I smile and they smile back at me and stop looking. But I don't know what it is about men, specifically like middle-aged and older men. They'll stare at me and I'll be staring back and I'll smile at them and they still just continue to stare at me like, I don't know, it's a little unnerving. Today was a prime example of the real life Beijing being different from the Beijing that I kind of fabricated in my head. Like I've wanted to come here for so long. I've been watching content of other people's and I thought from like my studies and from watching these videos that I knew what Beijing was, and I thought, oh, for sure I'll be able to just find a library that has English books and be able to take books out, because obviously I couldn't really bring many books from home. So I travelled like 45 minutes on the metro to the National Library of Beijing. In the UK, in libraries you just go in and browse. There was so many different rooms and you had to sign up for a card first, and when I signed up for a card it said on the form like, oh, you have to pay 1,000 yuan deposit, which is like £100 to take out foreign language materials. And I asked her, is this if I wanted to borrow a book? And she said something, when you're not fluent in Mandarin living in China, it's very difficult, because I feel really awkward to ask them to repeat themselves slower. I'm pretty sure she said like, oh, because you're a foreigner you can't take books out anyway. So she just got me this reading card, which meant I could go in the reading room. So I went into the foreigners reading room and it was all like things you'd find in like a university library, like politics, history, all this stuff. So I went up to the desk and I said like, oh, do you know I can find English language novels? And she said something, don't know what she said. And then she said like, oh, go and look on that computer, search what you want and find it that way. At that point it was like, I give up. Because I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted like the romanticism of just walking through the library and finding maybe some Chinese translated literature into English, seeing what I fancied, seeing what was there. But obviously I couldn't really do that. So I kind of just left because I was really overwhelmed, and everyone I spoke to was speaking to me really fast. And I didn't understand anything they were saying, maybe because I was just panicking so I couldn't understand. But I didn't want to waste the trip, so just behind the library there's this giant park. It's really pretty, and I do feel like living in the city you really need to find the green spaces, because I'm a country girl. I need my green spaces. You don't get that in the city. Like going outside, it's not the same. I want to get outside as soon as I wake up, but then you get outside and it's just like skyscrapers and people beeping. There's a restaurant over there and I just walked in and I thought this looks really local, so I went in, and I could have easily got overwhelmed because already I was a little bit overwhelmed from the whole library situation, and it was henrona, like really busy. Obviously all the menus were in Chinese, and it was like a buffet kind of style thing where you just go up and pick things off the tray, and I was literally so overwhelmed. And then I saw some guy eating dumplings and I found the dumpling menu, and there was only two dumplings to choose from, and one of them was vegetarian, so I just went for that one. It's probably the same thing I've been eating every time I go out. I just have like egg and chive dumplings. I need to push the bow out, but I think maybe I need to make some Chinese friends first so they can tell me what to eat. I really need to get on that, like meeting people. It's just been so overwhelming. I feel like no one talks about how overwhelming it is to move somewhere where you don't know anyone. where there's a language barrier, where there's a cultural barrier. I don't know, I just think I romanticize it in my head. It's actually really hard. You really need to push yourself to like make friends and meet people. I think I need to do that next, maybe the week after next, after the holiday. It's the national holiday next week. Yeah, what I was thinking about when I was eating my dinner is how funny it is when you're in like a new environment. It's so much easier to feel stimulated and feel fulfilled. I know I'm always rambling on about technology and like how TikTok's rotting our brains and things like that, and how we always need to have some kind of stimulation when we're doing things. And when I was sat there eating, I wasn't even on my phone. I was just looking around the restaurant, watching all the locals, and like people were lining up in the queue, and this woman in front of me, her dinner cost her 50 yuan. She was like, 为什么那么贵? And I was like, that's so funny, because if this was the UK, that would be so cheap, but I understand that that is expensive here. Like, it was kind of a sherry table situation. I was just watching the group next to me. They were all like massive spread, and they were being like, wow, we're definitely going to be full after this. Like, how are we going to eat all this food? And just talking about the food and like sharing it out with each other. They were like, oh, you have some of this tastes good. That moment kind of made me feel better, because I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and I was like, this is why I came to China, to just experience the life of a local, experience a completely different culture, see into the mind of like the everyday life in China. That's what I wanted. There's a person over there skipping. Honestly, love coming to parks, because you just look around and there's just people doing all sorts.
Quicker?
So because I'm finding eating out quite overwhelming at the moment, I've just decided there's this road near my university, and I'm just going to try every single place on the road. This was a great option. I wish I'd come here yesterday. Yesterday I went next door and had malatang, which was good, but this was so cheap. Like, this all cost me 9 yuan. So I've got some baozi, obviously, because I just can't not. And this was a different one. It wasn't egg and chive, it was like pepper and aubergine. And this is tofu. It's called tofu brains. And I really, for the life of me, can't remember if that means it has meat in it or not. I'm hoping it doesn't, but I'm not being too strict with myself. Also, I don't want to waste food, and I do want to try things. So I need to get a spoon, I've just realised. Yeah, I've definitely heard people talk about this. I'm still not sure if it is vegetarian or not. It's cold. So hard to tell what's in here. This could easily be like bits of intestine or something. Interesting. I have absolutely no idea what to make of that. Let's get some chili for my baozi. I've just got chili on my bloody bag strap. Do you know what? Maybe it's just that nothing's kept warm here, because these baozi are not hot either. Which is a little bit disappointing. I feel like it tastes really good if it was like steaming hot. But oh, it's nice to try something new, and also just getting confidence ordering, and also finding really cheap places is always a good thing when I feel like a local. I did the rest of the chili sauce that I was dipping my baozi into this tofu brains. It's really strange. It's got like a smoky flavour, but not like smoky like barbecue, smoky like fire. I don't really know what that's all about, to be honest. To be honest, I don't like it. It has like an undertone of burnt don't know what that is. Maybe I should have got for me, Joel. I'm really trying not to eat processed food, but I just started my period. And I wondered why I've been craving sweets and why I'm so ravenous. It's always because of your cycle. These, I had one the other day. Not this brand, but they're just like custard-filled cakes. It's hitting the spot. I hate the level of plastic. There's so many processed foods here. Like, I guess that there is everywhere, isn't there? Just snacks, they're always processed. Super processed stuff like this always comes in plastic, and I also hate plastic, so maybe that's like a dual reason for me not to. I need to find like a sweet treat place, like a bakery, or like, I don't mind having like Chinese desserts, but I don't know where to find them. I've been into fruit though. I bought some fruit. I've been having that for breakfast every day. I know fruit is sweet, but sometimes I want like a pastry or chocolate. Right, I'm letting myself off today because I'm on my period. Also, this book is really good so far, considering I started it 2 days ago. I'm already like 160 pages in. That's pretty speedy for me. Like, I know I'm actually a fast reader. Like, I have read 59 books this year, some of those being audiobook. But I find for me, I speed up once I'm into it. But like the getting into it phase, I usually find it hard to read more than like 30 pages at a time. Like when I first pick up a book. But this one, I read like 60 pages and I was like, ooh, I like it. It's giving On Beauty by Zadie Smith because it like follows a family and each chapter is from like a different member of the family's perspective. It's a bit of a character study at the moment. It's different to On Beauty because it's set in the 70s in America. The dad's like a pastor, so pasta. There's a religious element to it. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Also like, wish I was born in the 70s. Do you know what I mean? Wish I was alive in the 70s. But do I? I don't know. Maybe I'm romanticising it in my head. September was not what I had imagined. In my visions for my life in Beijing, I saw a transformative period where everything I'd worked towards for 4 years finally paid off. I uncovered new skills and passions and made the most of every single second. I almost actively put off making any small adjustments to my life and routine for several months, as I kept telling myself that Beijing would be a fresh start. I wanted to feel the full effect of my transformation. This would not only be the chance for me to finally become as close to fluent in Chinese as I could, but also finally to get myself into good physical shape, to master the art of patience and improve my capacity for silence, especially in regard to cultivating skills like writing and calligraphy. I also saw a rich social life where I pushed myself out of my comfort zone to make friends from all over the world and really used what I've learned about myself these past 2 years to be a better listener, be more inquisitive and exercise empathy. What I didn't account for was how exhausting it is to constantly be translating in your head, to feel the discomfort that is not being able to express yourself to the extent that you want to, especially when being thrown into the unfamiliar. I didn't account for fatigue that I would feel after my shifts, both physically and mentally, that would lead to late nights unable to do anything but doom scroll and migraines that often followed when I spent too long looking at a screen. I didn't anticipate being too overwhelmed by the thought of navigating the big city to even leave the house, or quitting and simply returning home after a wasted metro journey. I didn't expect the conflicting schedules, the last-minute revisions to work hours that prevented me from socialising freely, both with people in Beijing and friends from back home, that forced me into a cocoon of my own company. But all this has shown me my own resilience. Even after poor sleep, I get out of bed and find something to do with my day, a place to go, knowledge to seek out. I continue to start conversations with strangers, taxi drivers, people in parks, even when they can't always understand what I'm saying, and I continue to draw joy from these small interactions. I endeavour to continue seeking out delicious vegetarian food, and I know there are more people out there for me to befriend and learn from, and there will always be more metro station staircases for me to climb, and secret unknown talents to uncover. Beijing will be patient and awaits me with anticipation and open arms.
Quite funny, isn't it? I was drunk and I don't remember.
When you're allergic to egg.